All right, let's see. Are you here already? Let me make sure I've done this correctly. Today we are live on YouTube. Hey, YouTubers, you out there? Anybody here on Twitch so far this morning? Let us know. Let us know if you're out there and that everything's working right. And wow, yes, we are live on Facebook. Patricia Bishop is here already. Great to see you, Patricia. Who's out there? Anybody on YouTube and Twitch as well? Patricia, you're going to love it. We've got a really interesting program today. So let me start off by saying hi. I'm Bill Schaefer of Growing Bolder, and this is Growing Bolder Now. Streaming programs like this can have an incredible reach, and sometimes we don't even realize who we're chatting with. I see that Roseanne Dash is here as well on Facebook. Good morning, Roseanne. It's nice to have you here too. We don't always realize how far these things can go. It's kind of cool for everybody to kind of weigh in, say hi, and go ahead and start commenting in the comment box. Barbara Cox says good morning as well on Facebook. Tell us where you're watching from. Gary Hess is here. Tell us where you guys are too, because that's kind of interesting as well. We're making friends all over the country and then beyond sometimes too. We had a bunch of people from Sweden in last week too, and Patricia Bishop is in New Orleans this morning, traveling around, huh, Patricia? How's that going? Tell us where you're watching, why you're here, and most importantly, give us some idea of how you're growing bolder. Gary Hess from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Laura Mayer from St. Paul. Thea Daniel is here from Northern California. We're going to tell you a little bit about Thea in just a minute. Donna Moore. Good morning to Donna Moore as well. Did her show last night. I hope it was spectacular. And Barbara Cox in Des Moines, Iowa, and Claudine Howard in Texas. Donna Moore and my wife Mary have a duo. They're both unbelievable singers. Donna is tremendous. She does singing impersonations of a number of great performers as well. And she's tremendous. If you ever have a chance to see her show in the Central Florida area, or coming out and see her and my wife Mary. Sally Hughes in Tampa Bay. We got a good crowd going today. Still want to see more Twitch people. Georgia Pantelides is here from New Jersey. So yeah, it's looking really good. Everybody's up. Joe Pyers. Joe, you're gonna get Laura's aircraft going, because we would love to come out and watch that, man. That would be great to see her post a really cool video. Joe Pyers is one of my favorite story subjects of all time, and he's into these gyro planes. You know, it kind of looks like a bicycle with a propeller on the top and the back. And I took my wife Mary out there for her birthday. She loves adventure. I'm not so keen. And Joe took her up, and it was so amazing looking. And then afterwards they said, no, Bill, you have to go. And I thought of every excuse not to do it, and I went, and it was so amazing. In fact, let's do one of these. Let's do one of these where we're out in your yard and you're sitting in the thing, and you can show it to us, and we can run some of that amazing GoPro video that you have. It says as soon as the runway dries out. Yeah, we've had a lot of rain in Central Florida, so yeah, that'll be great. And not only that, Joe, what a great attitude you have for life. Your enthusiasm. You're one of my favorite people. Georgia is in Yolder, growing Yolder Holder. What is that? Erica Sinclair is checking in from Cambridge, England, and that's kind of what I was talking about. Streaming's everywhere, folks, and it just kind of shows us that we're all in this together and we're all the same. So let me tell you about today's show. Since everybody's here, I'm really glad you're here. This is going to be one of our best. Coming up, one of the most important guests we've ever had on our stream. There's Karen Bernstein. Karen, are you skipping your spinning class today to be with us here, or your whatever it was this morning? I think it was spinning. Anyway, we're glad you're here. So as I was saying, this may be one of the most important guests we've ever had. We're going to hear from Ellen Jaffe Jones. She's a former investigative reporter whose life completely changed. She had a near-death experience. She had 3 loved ones diagnosed with cancer, and her story just might change your life as well, because I'm sure you've had the same thoughts, you've had the same concerns, you've thought about doing what she did. She's going to talk about taking charge of our own health, because these days, folks, that's what we all have to do. Your health, your fitness, and we're even going to talk about sex, because, well, why not? Who's interested in that anyway, right? Anyway, you're going to really love Ellen Jaffe Jones. She's got a lot to tell us that really will make us all take note. First of all, just a bit about Growing Bolder. In a sea of negativity, it is a place to find inspiration. If you've ever wished there was more to life, if you've ever wondered why you're not fulfilled, if you're faced with challenges, maybe they're health challenges, they could be financial, they could be relationships, which can be difficult to maintain. And if you've wondered if there's a way out, a way forward, Growing Bolder is the place for you. It's a social media presence. It's a TV show on public television. It's a radio show, and it's a podcast. It's an incredible magazine as well. So much more. And the place to find out about it all is the mothership, growingbolder.com. Do take a look at growingbolder.com. I'm telling you, folks, there really is nothing like it out there. It's just a place to be you. It's a place to be a better you than you ever thought you can be. And when we swim in a pool of like-minded people that are encouraging us to do better instead of telling us, gee, that's a good idea, but nah, it's too hard, or you don't want to go to Growing Bolder. It will change your life in a great way, in the best way possible. In fact, one of the things you'll find if you do go is a very cool page about something very interesting. We have a new broadcast television program. Some of you may know about it. It's called What's Next. It's kind of like Pardon the Interruption meets TMZ. We bring up a variety of topics, some short videos, and then our panel of Growing Bolder personalities, very interesting people, offer their takes, their insights, and their impressions, and it's excellent. There are some great conversations, unexpected moments that all center around what's next in our lives. It's pretty cool. Where do people talk about that? Just at Growing Bolder. And you can see where it's airing near you. You can even watch an episode by going to growingbolder.com/hyphen. Here, I'm going to say this again. growingbolder.com/what's-next. There it is. It's in the comment section too of your screen. Thank you, Tim, for popping that in as well. Also, we got a brand new app that takes our Growing Bolder shows, our interviews like the one you'll see today, our stories, and puts them in sort of a Netflix format. So you can not only find things easily, you can see just how many truly fascinating guests, pieces, and programs that we have for you. And the best part of it is, just like everything on Growing Bolder, there's no charge. Go enjoy, bathe in the stuff, look around, see what's there, connect with something. Just go to growingbolder.com/TV and check it out. That's the app there. Again, if you get confused, just go to growingbolder.com. It's all there. We had a great stream last week with a musician named Marlon Hoffman. What an amazing guy. I encourage you to go over to the app and look for that interview and watch it. He was like, man, everything he said, everything out of his mouth was wisdom and to the max. And you never would have expected it from somebody who's not like a professional motivational speaker, somebody like that. But we find so many pearls of wisdom. We all consider ourselves ordinary people, right? So many pearls of wisdom come from ordinary people, and nobody gives them a forum. Nobody gives you a chance. We're sharing comments here on the side. We all have a chance to participate. Thank you, Patricia. Marlon was amazing last week. We can all lend our voices, and together we're so much stronger and we're so much better. It's empowering, it's encouraging. And we have a segment that we do from time to time in this program. Patricia was our first bold soul, but we have another bold soul to introduce you to today. There's someone out of our audience here on the stream who is living a Growing Bolder lifestyle, someone who's active, somebody who's interested, inspiring, and in other words, a normal person who's just out there trying to live a fulfilling life. She is Thea Daniels from Sonoma County, California. She's learned the benefits of living with gratitude, of always looking to grow, to experience, and to making a difference for others along the way as well. Why don't we let her tell us a little bit about herself? Here's Thea Daniels.
Hello, Growing Bolder community. My name is Thea Daniels, Coach Thea Daniels, and I live in Santa Rosa, California. I'm here today to talk to you about what fires me up, and that's you. I love people. I love the whole concept of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And one of the things that runs my life is being in service to taking care of myself so that I can be in service to the people that are in my community. And then the whole coaching thing is about being able to help people be in touch with what lights them up. Happiness and fulfillment. Keeping it simple. Because when we make choices from a place of happiness and fulfillment, we live better lives. So no matter what it is that you're doing, when we know what it is that we want, we have a direction to go into.
How cool is that? That's fantastic. Thea Daniels, man, definitely growing bolder, bold soul. And folks, you can do that, can't you? You can do a little video that kind of explains what your perspective is, where you are in life, what you've learned, what your thoughts are. Send us your video. Give it a try. Share it with us. If you think you'd like to try, just write the words bold soul, pop it into the comment section there along the side where you can see that Tim from Growing Bolder has already put the directions up there. Just pop the words bold soul in and we'll reach out to you and figure out a way to contact each other. Life is always best, folks, when we can empower and inspire each other. All it takes is what? A little honesty, a little vulnerability, which is great, and a desire to make a difference. And that's what kind of pushes us through all the rest. So become a bold soul, especially those of you who are popping in and who like what you see from Growing Bolder. Be part of it, because that just makes the whole thing better. Well, you know what? Without even thinking about it, I guess that's a pretty good intro to our next guest. I am Bill Schaefer, and this is Growing Bolder, and our next guest is a very bold soul because she wants to help all of us make some big changes, the kind of changes that just might help you live longer, certainly help you live better. And she says it isn't nearly as hard as it sounds. So what kind of changes are we talking about? Basically, it's just two. It's diet and exercise. And she just might be all the motivation you need. Let's say hi to Ellen Jaffe Jones. Ellen, how are you?
I'm great, Bill. Thank you for having me on.
Well, you look fantastic, and I can't tell you how happy I was to be able to reach out to you and find out that you were available to do this. I've known Ellen for a very long time. In fact, I knew you in the 70s, Ellen, and I was trying to think back on it, and I don't think that you were a runner. I don't remember that you were on any special diets. In other words, you were just like the rest of us. So what happened?
Well, funny, just such a small world. Marlon Hoffman and I not only went to the same high school, but we were in drama and plays together and stuff. So just the world is so synchronistic sometimes. But, you know, I grew up in St. Louis, right next to the best bakery on the planet. And by the time I got to the age of 28, I almost died of a colon blockage. I collapsed in the newsroom. I was a television investigative reporter, first in Des Moines for 18 cold months, then Miami, and then moved back to my hometown of St. Louis. And they rushed me to the emergency room, and they said they'd never seen a blockage so large in somebody so young, and I would need to be on medication the rest of my life. It was the same year my sister, who was married to the lieutenant governor, and herself ran for the U.S. Senate, had breast cancer for the second time. She was very outspoken about that. And I'm going and I was the youngest in my family. So I had a lifetime to figure out what I didn't want to happen to me, to the extent you can control your genes, which don't determine destiny all the time. So I ran to the health food store and read all 5 books on fiber, and because that's all there was at the time, and started changing at that point.
So I want to jump on something you said there. The genes don't determine destiny. That was like one of the first big comments that you've had so far in the interview. Tell us more about why you said that and what we need to understand about that.
Well, my mom, aunt, and both sisters would go on to have breast cancer. And even before my mom and my oldest sister got breast cancer, the breast cancer in our family was so well known, especially because of my other sister, who led a very public life, we became part of the breast cancer gene studies. So now the BRCA1 and the BRCA2 gene testing that you can just go to your family doctor and get, those were part of our family's genes that were part of that research with Myriad Genetics. But we didn't need a gene to tell us that what we already knew, that the gene was alive and well in our family. And I never knew whether or not I had the gene, because on those studies, they don't tell you until I went on Medicare and was able to get tested myself. As it turns out, I don't have the gene, but they believe that 2 of the cases in our family were environmentally triggered because they were late in life. So there is much you can do, and only 10% of all breast cancer cases are genetic anyway, to turn those genes on and off. There's a whole study called epigenetics, what turns genes on and off. And certainly what you see behind me is I have placed, as of last weekend, in 229 5K or longer races for my age group. I'm a nationally ranked sprinter. My gold medal from the National Senior Games here. And this all became kind of this mission when I was at a 5K race, and I coached high school girls cross country and track, and then just started racing here locally in Florida. And somebody came up to me as I was wearing the shirt, because this is my first book that I wrote, and said, "Oh, you can't run on a vegan diet." And so it just became this passion to show, yes, we get plenty of protein, we get plenty of energy. And when was the last time you visited the protein deficiency ward of the hospital? Cancer and diabetes, heart disease, those are the things we really need to stress about. You get plenty of protein on a vegan diet, which is how I morphed, in answer to your question, in this whole journey of what would be the healthiest way for me to avoid not only cancer, but heart disease and diabetes, which was actually more prolific in our family than even breast cancer.
All right, I want to jump on this because I think this is where there isn't anybody watching who disagrees with you about anything you said. There's nobody out there who doesn't think a vegan way of life is probably healthier. There isn't anybody out there who hasn't thought about, maybe I should get off the couch and run every once in a while. But so few of us do it, Ellen. And am I wrong? Am I exaggerating things to say that I think you hated running back in the 70s when I knew you? And I certainly don't think you had dietary restrictions on yourself. I'm stuck on this point where, I don't do it either. I know I should. Do we need to be faced with our sisters and our mother having some terrible thing and us living in fear of getting it? How do we motivate ourselves? How do we get that we can do this?
Well, I came to veganism strictly from health. First, when I was going through this whole process, it was a macrobiotic diet, which was basically a vegan diet with white fish, but now we don't want to be eating fish because they eat microplastics, and we don't want to eat that so much. And then vegetarian, and then I learned about, you just watch the 7-minute video, dairy is scary, and you'll never eat dairy again because it really shows you how they get cows. I mean, it's another species milk. We're the only species that doesn't drink milk. That drinks milk from another species. So nutritionally, we don't need it. And, there's plenty of research now that shows that insulin growth factors in cows make them grow into a baby calf grows into a ginormous cow in a matter of months. And oh, by the way, it makes tumors grow very rapidly too. So dairy is just so not necessary for our species. And, so the motivation, yes, you're right. I remember when my sister went through chemo back in those days. I mean, can I say this? She was puking her guts out and it was just so full of pain and suffering. And I saw that up close for days, weeks at a time. And I thought, I don't want to ever go through this. And, at that point, I didn't know whether I had the gene or not, but I lived my life as if I did. The whole running thing happened just because I don't like to be bored. And so, having these amazing earbuds and music, I love music, and to run with music was like this exhilarating thing. And then when I was helping to volunteer coach cross country at the high school, the coach said, you're clocking 8-minute miles. You might want to think about racing competitively. And you're right, a long time ago, I was just like a middle of the packer, not very fast, but I kind of joke now because at my age, which is, are we going to tell them? I don't know. You just show up for a race and you win. Well, not really, but
Ellen, I believe I hate to tell you this, but on Growing Bolder, you have to tell your age because it helps us. It helps all of us understand that it's something to be proud of. We all think age is something to be a little embarrassed about, and it's the beginning of the end instead of the beginning of new opportunities. So you telling us would just make all of us say, my gosh, there goes another excuse of mine. So,
well, actually,
please.
I promised, I think on somebody's Facebook page, that if you guess my age in this broadcast and you guessed it right, see, that's what I was waiting for, then I would give you a free coaching session. So, because I'm a personal trainer and a running coach, because why not? and a real estate agent, because you can never have too many things. Boredom is like the worst word. Retirement, ew. People ask me when I'm going to retire. It's like, it's kind of like I'll sleep when I'm dead. I got plenty of time for that. But yes, people ask me, what are you running from? And my answer is disease. Certainly, I've seen it all in my family. And even though I was, and I will say, kind of the laughing stock of my two older sisters, oh, you're such a cult member, you little black sheep, you just bring the salad to our family dinner. I mean, it was all in good humor, kind of, but they never got it. But the interesting thing is that I now have 4 cousins all about my age who've all gone vegan because they grew up in our family and they know what the end was going to look like if they didn't do something, I would say drastic, but it really isn't drastic. I became kind of on a mission to show people, because I would see these stories on the news that said you can't eat well, you can't eat healthfully on a budget or on food stamps. So because I was also a financial consultant after I left television at Smith Barney, I thought, how fun would it be to like crunch the numbers on every single recipe and just show how inexpensive beans and whole grains are. And when you cut out the meat and dairy, you have all this money left over to buy produce or join a CSA or a co-op and get produce, even organic produce, for cheap or free sometimes. So that's what that book number 1 was. And, when I thought I moved to Florida, I was going to like sort of kick back and relax. I had done media consulting all over the world. And yet this book just took off. And so my publisher said, let's keep writing. So I wrote 5 more books. And, I, before COVID, was running around the country speaking at all these veg fests and different health fairs and events, and, kind of being this model of health and fitness. But really, I did hate running. And just one more anecdote on that. And next question, please. I was lucky enough to do a 5K race with my 2 daughters in St. Louis, and they had their significant others come along, and we all placed. But on the way to the race, we were all saying how much we hate running. St. Louis is not a fun place to run in the summer. It was on 4th of July weekend a couple of years ago. And but we said, when we're done, and my boyfriend says the same thing, it is the best feeling. The endorphins kick in and you are never sorry you ran or did that race.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking it's the worst feeling. I'm kind of thinking it's the worst feeling of starting a 5K, running for like 5 minutes and thinking, I think my heart's going to explode and I don't think I'm going to make it. So I think, Ellen, you don't look at beginners and point and laugh at us. It's can you talk a little bit about how, man, it really, folks, and I'm saying this only because I'm the worst. I would never have thought I would ever want to do anything like that. But when we go to races for Growing Bolder to do stories, it's such an empowering, uplifting community of people that are all there trying to help each other.
Yes, and that's the thing I love about it the most, is that it crosses the age groups. If you've read the book Healthy at 100 by John Robbins, son of Baskin and, by the way, and who went vegan because he went with his father to all these wealthy clients who were eating a lot of ice cream and were really sick. And so, it is that intergenerational living in these blue zones that is really the most important thing that we have in common for living a long and healthy life, and getting a cat too, by the way, I might say.
Introduce us.
This is Misty the rescue cat. She was abandoned at my vet's, and we made eye contact just like this. And if she is not a surrogate child, I don't know what is. But my boyfriend took the black lab to the park. Otherwise, we would not be having this quiet interview. And so Misty always finds me when the dog is gone. And so we just have a little special bonding time. So I hope that's okay with everybody, but she's such a sweetheart. Anyway, mom brain just totally went out the window there.
I'm hypnotized. It's incredible the way that cat looks at you, Ellen. I mean, it's like, wow, what a gaze. What an excellent stare. I can see how you fell in love with that cat. We were talking about. We're talking about how it's not a place to be intimidated. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Whether you walk the whole way or whether you walk halfway and then jump off the course, it's a great place to try, to not to be afraid to fail. And we know that about running, but I'm not so sure about eating more of a plant-based diet, because I think to me, and folks, all of you who are listening, watching, can chime in on this too. For me, the obstacles are, I get home, I'm tired, it's been a long day, I just want to throw something in the microwave as quick as possible and have my meal. I don't know how to cook vegan. I don't know how to shop vegan. And I certainly don't know what it's I understand that when you are, it's not like every day you go, oh, I guess I can't have steak today. It's you stop even ever wanting it. You don't desire it anymore because you feel so much better and you like what you eat. So can you tell us a little bit about how do you do that? How do you say, okay, I think today is the day I'm going to make a difference in my life? How do you start?
Oh, Billy, you touched on so many different issues and good questions. Let's start with, first of all, if you saw my freezer right now, there's a good chunk of frozen dinners in there. And they make all these, Amy's has an incredible line of vegan dinners, lunches, whatever, a little higher in fat. So, if you're watching your fat intake for cardiac patients, that may be something you're concerned about. So yeah, cooking from scratch. And people will say sometimes, oh, you mean you really have to cook from scratch? And I go, well, you don't have to. There certainly are, and I have a lot of ways in my books and coaching how to give you shortcuts how to do that. But, the other thing I say is like, if you are looking for ways to save time, you don't have time for cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. Those are real time wasters. So I've been through those with my family, my childhood. I grew up in hospitals watching all these relatives just experience all this pain and suffering and the time. And I sometimes say entire generations are losing each other and don't even know it. So, the motivation is there. I have 3 children, 3 daughters, and I want to be, if I'm ever so lucky, to be a grandmother, to be a very different grandparent than, my parents ever could. And, their doctors smoke, for crying out loud. So I don't fault them. It was the information that was available at the time. As I say in this book, there's no money in broccoli. And when you understand that, you have to be your own investigative reporter like I was on TV to figure out the truth about food. Also at races, just let's drill down that point. So important. You can walk an entire race. Nobody will judge you. There are many people who walk races. I had a brother-in-law who entered marathons and was known because he walked the whole thing. And at the time, which was like 30 years ago, he was really an anomaly to do that. Not so much now. They're all different kinds of races. Some are just geared to be more fun runs or walks. And they support amazing causes, usually 501c3 nonprofits. So, you can look at that. And again, it's important. I have my 4th book, which is Vegan Fitness for Mortals. There we go. So I have all kinds of training programs in there, depending where you are. And I give you ways to figure out where you are on the scale of beginner, intermediate, or advanced, whether it's swimming, biking, walking, and or running. And most people, they'll say, do you think I could run a marathon in a year? It's like, well, how many 5K races have you done this year? How many training runs are you doing a week? So we kind of back time it like, we were in television to try and figure out when's the date you want to do a race by and how is it going to that end to get you there in a way. My whole thing is, as I say in vegan fitness, finish without injury. Because I coached high school kids, I saw that some of the coaches would really push them to the point. I even knew one high school girl who broke her femur. And, you got to do it in little baby steps. You can't just get there. One of the things that was really interesting, and I'll just share this. When I first moved to Florida, I'll never forget, it was on April 15th, tax day, turned out to be a Sunday. I hear this shotgun blast out my window on Anna Maria Island where I lived. And I thought either somebody's dead or that's a race starting. And I looked out the window, and fortunately it was the latter. And it was just a race starting. And I meandered over there, struck up a conversation with a woman who I'm friends with to this day. And I said, how do people run in Florida in the summertime? And she goes, get up at sunrise. And that piece of advice, we're still friends to this day, and it really served me well. So there are ways to do this, finding running groups in your community. And again, lots of people walk in these groups. it's just it's I wouldn't say it's easy, but if you have any degree of motivation, I know where I live in the Sarasota Bradenton area, the weekend runs, the training runs are along the beach, so it's very beautiful and peaceful.
Right, Ellen, a lot of people are poking me now and saying, hey, at the beginning, Bill, you said you were going to talk about sex. When are you going to talk about sex? So we'll bring that up in a minute. But first, before we leave this point, because when you talk about, okay, well, it still sounds like work. Getting up early in the morning, training for your marathon. Talk about how the reality is once you start, it's not about work. It's about fun. It's about anything you did this week more than you did last week is what exercise is. And you start to feel so much better. And you're talking about like certain cases where people always want to do more, but it's just the idea or even just the peace of mind that comes from knowing that you're doing the best. Do you get rewarded when you go to the physician every year for your annual physical? Do you see a difference in the numbers?
Absolutely. And I will tell you, I've had my own issues. I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis a couple of years ago, and I'm going like, how did this happen? But turns out my dad had it. It's a genetic thing. But I was on book tour. I was sitting at my publisher's table all day long, all weekend long, eating things like Cliff Bars. Yeah, I'm a recovering Cliff Bar addict. I love these chocolate mint ones. I try and do them in moderation. But that was my diet, and I wasn't eating me, the shoemaker's daughter, of my 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. So I then, and when I Googled psoriatic arthritis, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be lucky to be walking in a year, let alone running. And so I was connected up with some mutual friends through the work that I've done with Dr. Brooke Goldner, who has a great book out there called Goodbye Lupus. And she asked me to write the foreword to her third book, which is Goodbye Autoimmune Disease, because I went on her protocol, had a 1-hour consult with her, which was the best medical doctor appointment I've ever had in my life, where basically I was following her protocol, green smoothies, Vitamix full of greens and anything else, some flax seeds and anything else to make the medicine go down. And within 3 weeks, the signs of psoriatic arthritis started going away. And she has the before and after pictures, which I sent her. My palms were all cracked and bleeding. My fingernails were coming off, which was just mind blowing. And that by doing this hypernourishment, as she calls it, the symptoms just went away, and it blew my doctors away too, because I was starting to get, the classic symptoms that usually gets you in your two fingers here on each hand. And, and that's kind of probably the permanent damage that's still there, but, I don't feel it. And so, this kind of stuff, we're not immune. Going on a vegan diet doesn't make you immune. You still have to, you can eat any diet unhealthily and any diet to some extent healthfully. But there's some things you can't overcome by eating meat and dairy. You asked about how long does it take? 3 to 6 weeks to change your taste buds. When we often make the comparison, did you ever drink whole milk as a kid and then you went to skim milk and it was like this blue, not tasty stuff. And then maybe a few weeks or months later, you went back and tasted whole milk again. It was like this thick sludge. So that's the kind of change that happens. You feel so much energy. And okay, I don't know if I'm not seeing the comment thread or anything. Has anybody guessed my age yet, Bill?
No, and if they don't, I'm going to. But
I know.
So.
Don't you? Don't you?
But I want that lesson. I want that free consultation.
There you
go. I think, Ellen, something happens. Messages like yours kind of get lost in the clutter, because everywhere you turn, people are telling you they've got a cure for this and something for that. And so since there's not a huge marketing agency behind plant-based dieting or running, it's not the glitzy Madison Avenue kind of thing that convinces us. Kevin Fitzgerald, one of our Mizzou classmates, is listening from Marco Island, and Mike Redmond, a friend of mine who started cycling, and he ended up doing it just because it's fun and the health benefits are amazing. But do you find people that ask you all the time, they go, well, what supplement should I be taking? And that's a whole different kind of game there, isn't it?
Yeah. And, because again, I don't like to be bored. I've done so many different things. And in preparation for writing my books, I've done these things. So I worked at a health food store, which, the only way they make money is through the supplements. And again, there's no money in broccoli. And I just, keep repeating that. I got that line from a great book called The Politics of Breastfeeding, where they said there's no money in breast milk. There's no corporation that makes it. There's no broccoli association, no broccoli lobby, no broccoli finance politicians. And many doctors are educated in the pharmaceutical, industry, and they've paid for entire hospital wings or entire hospitals. And so when you do your research, and you really do have to do this to figure out different things that may or may not work for you. And I just always knew I wanted to avoid medication as much as I could, because I saw the drug interactions, with different relatives, and you might put out one fire, but it starts another. And I'm even going through just different things. When you look at my medical history has not been perfect. My cholesterol, I did the high protein diets when I was younger, because on television we had to keep our weight a certain way. Nobody ever said what it was, but you just knew you had to. And so I paid a price for that. My cholesterol was 203 at its worst. And even when I went vegan and I was doing the Cliff Bar thing, and not exercising during a period of time where I was experiencing a lot of stress, my cholesterol shot up again. And so I ended up going through the Dean Ornish program for reversing heart disease at Sarasota Memorial, because I have some genetic heart issues going on as well. And they said, you got the diet thing down, you got the exercise thing down, but you need to learn how to relax and meditate. And I said, oh, I'd rather watch paint dry. But that is part of this whole package, this holistic package that we have to figure out for ourselves. Some people are naturally calm and relaxed. There are others of us. I really don't think I'm competitive. As you say, I do this just to relax. And as it turns out, I met my boyfriend through my vegan activism, but it turns out he was a runner as well, and we'd been at the same races and didn't even know each other. So that's a whole nother component of this, is when you have this energy, you become this positive force that people, they say, I want what she's got. And, even at races, I'll hear people say, I'm wearing this shirt, and as I pass them, and they'll go, oh, there goes that vegan energy. So it's a real palpable thing, and it's not just something that's out there. And I would really like to say it is not that difficult. What is difficult is watching your relatives up close and personal suffer and get these very preventable diseases most of the time.
And the whole supplement industry, what we were talking about before is, if you're trying to choose which beet powder to take, maybe just stop by and pick up a couple of beets.
Yeah, although I will say beet powder is my breakfast of champions on race day. I really do. I've had chronic bronchitis. I've had asthma. And so I just feel like I can breathe better when I've had beet juice before I race.
Ellen, you sound like a walking medical disaster. You've had everything, and it really, this is, again, why we wanted to talk to you, because it's not like, well, I went on this diet and I started running, and look, I don't have any problems. And it's not, we're not saying that you're going to live to be 125 years old either, but the number of good days that you will have in your lifetime will be greatly increased, because you're giving yourself the chance to recover, the chance to prevent, the chance to replenish, and look at the active life you're living. Is that basically the main message here?
Yeah, I was like the oldest woman in my real estate class. It's like, well, this is cool. I would like to think that all this the stuff, like somebody said in my cooking classes once, it would take me a lifetime to learn what she's learned. But I have been driven to find out answers just because I didn't want the kind of life I saw that my parents and my sisters had. And I think I've only recognized recently how powerful that was and how motivating that was, because I know what's on the other side if I don't do this, and it's not fun. And my boyfriend I mentioned, and we're pretty public about this.
Wait, show us that. What is he, 20? Ellen?
He's 15 years younger. That's right. But this was like 4 years ago, and he had all these. He went vegan to help a family member with their medical issues, and so he was traveling around the country going to these veg fests, and ended up at the Portland Veg Fest, because Portland, at least at the time, was considered vegan mecca, and so he comes to my talk, and he realizes that I'm also from Sarasota. And so that picture was at my publisher's table after, or there's another similar one like that was at my publisher's table. And he said, you should come to my meetups in Sarasota. So I started doing that for like 4 years. And, at the time we were both married to other people. And then the short story is, we both became available at the same time. And he had another meetup at this house that was his. And I said, if you know any single vegan guys, like, could you have them call me? So 2 weeks later, he says, you want to just go out as friends for dinner? And he realized, because I told him that I had never been to a vegan restaurant on my birthday. So he took me to the best one, of course, in this area, and just melted my heart. So yeah, that's the short story.
All right. Well, look, that's a good transition because we're going to get to the sex thing. But first, you asked about your age, and yes, people are guessing. They're throwing numbers out here. Oh, yeah, that's the book. That's the book. That's what's coming. So Joe says he thinks you're 62. Mike says 72. Esther's 69. Patricia says 68, but you look 38. Thea says 70. And there's a couple more guesses down here, too. There's... somebody said 55. Ellen, you have, as they used to say in the game show world, you have stumped the panel because you don't look like an age. You just look like you.
I think it's the high def resolution here. I mean, it used to be like in the old days of television, it's sort of a little softer, but somebody told me your neck kind of gives away your age. So those of you who said 68, I'm going to be 69 shortly. You are right. Well, yeah.
And, here's the other way to phrase that question. When you and I were 20, what were 69-year-olds doing? They weren't. Look at your, Ellen goes, I'm not competitive. And look behind her. Look, there's only 5,000 medals behind you. Most of them earned probably in the last decade or so. So there's a whole new life stage that didn't exist before. And as a journalist, this may be the most important story of our lifetime. Is this new life stage that traditionally there was after 50, this is what you did. You watched Matlock and you sat in a comfy chair and you waited to die. And this is not the way that you and many other people are living.
That's just so true. And it's really about how do you want to live this last stage of your life? And, certainly in the race, absolutely it is. And it's just not that difficult. I mean, people say, I can't run because of my knees. Oh, and by the way, vegans don't get arthritis, generally speaking. I said psoriatic arthritis, that is a genetic condition. And again, I was lucky I only got the fingers, but it can tear apart your whole body. So the reason is a vegan diet is very alkaline, very anti-inflammatory. Animal protein, you can Google all the reasons for this, but it lodges in the joints and causes inflammation there. And women who used to beat me like crazy 10 and 15 years ago aren't even running anymore. And it's just mind-boggling for me to really see that. So especially because we compete in 5-year age groups. So I know everybody in my age group, they know me. And, people just kind of are dealing with all these issues, as am I. But, it's like how much, we got to all die of something. And it's just Michael Greger, who's one of my mentors. There's some great vegan doctors out there. I suggest you follow them and follow the doctors and the dietitians and the athletes. He has a great book, How Not to Die. And that's really what this is all about. As in the book, Healthy at 100, there are cultures of the world where in these blue zones where they live above 10,000 feet, mountainous communities, intergenerational living, and, just one day their heart stops and that's it. So that really is the goal. And then to enjoy life to the fullest, if there's something you want to do that you don't think you can do, this is the time. So, what's the worst thing that could happen? And, for me, this is about comparing how I used to run and improving, or at least just maintaining. And with proper training, and if you hire a coach, and as you know, I've competed in the National Senior Games, and I was blown away the first time I competed in Cleveland 6 years ago. There were women who hired coaches from UCLA or USC that not only trained them during the year, but they paid for them to come out and coach them at the games. And I'm going like, holy guacamole, I am just a weekend athlete here. And, you know, at the national level, I'm fast enough, but I don't train enough to be super, super fast, just, you know, to be clear about that. There are women my age who are much faster and more trained, but I do all these other things. I don't train every day. I used to be a gym rat, and, you know, now I'm lucky if I get there a couple times a week. But there are other things that I want to do in my life, and I'm okay with saying I don't have to be the best at this.
So, Ellen, as National Senior Games you mentioned, isn't it? It really isn't as much about the competition as it is this incredibly empowering, uplifting community of people encouraging each other to stay vibrant, to stay active, and to stay healthy as possible.
Yeah, I mean, just the most mind-boggling thing was after talking to you, I realized that you were at the same games that I attended in Albuquerque. So there's my gold medal from the 4x100. And it's just so much fun. And, you know, in the local running community, it used to be thought that, you know, the senior games are just for geezers who are one step away from death's door kind of thing. But I'm telling you, they are super competitive and super fast at some of the levels there. So, but what's cool is that everybody is welcome and inspiring. We saw a 103-year-old, I guess you saw her in Albuquerque, do the 100 meters. And,
Julia,
you know,
Hurricane Hawkins is 105 now, and she's hoping to be able to come to Fort Lauderdale in 2022 for the games. You can see her in action at growingboulder.com as well, Julia Hurricane Hawkins. And when you're there, Ellen, and you see, that's why your age, thank you for telling us your age, it does mean a lot. It's when people, it's the someone like me factor. When somebody can tell us all day long what we're supposed to do, but when we're 68, when we're 60, when we're 75, 78, and we see you talking about how much fun it is, how much joy you get out of it, how much energy you have, we start to think, well, maybe I could, $4 a day, vegan afford, maybe I could do that too. And maybe this is a good time, Ellen, to talk sex. What does veganism have to do with sex?
All right, well, let me get there real quickly because I know we have just a limited amount of time.
You're not going to show us any pictures, are you?
Oh, no, there were no pictures and no demonstrations either. So second book was Kitchen Divided, vegan dishes for semi-vegan households, because my partner at the time, my husband, was not vegan. And so that cookbook was built with recipes that streamline the cooking process where I was doing the cooking, and I didn't want to feel like a short order chef. And so it just made like main dishes that I could eat for myself and that he could plop whatever meat he wanted to put into it, that kind of thing. So then after that, the whole paleo craze was real popular. So I wrote that. National Geographic came out with a cover story a year after that book called The Real Paleo Diet. And they pretty much quoted out of that book without attribution, saying the world can't sustain a diet based around meat and dairy. We don't have enough agricultural land, and we don't have enough water to raise cattle for a meat-based diet. And they also said in Paleolithic times, truly, we were way more gatherers because the success rate of hunters even today is abysmal. So that was that book. And then, as I mentioned, vegan fitness, just because people want to learn how to do that. And yeah, so then we get to vegan sex. And I always say, if this doesn't work out, vegan for one is your last hope. But really, it's about single serving recipes, so you're not cooking for a lot of people. But this came about because up until the age of 62, not all that long ago, and by the way, the subtitle here is Dump Your Meds and Jump in Bed. So I've been married way too many times, and each time, starting at the age of 28, I had partners who had erectile dysfunction. And we were just told, pop the purple green pill so your eyes turn orange. Oh, well, just part of the aging process. Don't ever take that as an answer. And so at the age of 62, the short story is I had my first vegan experience. And I was having some back pain. And the physical therapist said, the reason you're having back pain is because, and you have to tell me how graphic I can get on this, Bill. Can I say?
Well, I'll stop you if you get too graphic. And folks, you let me know too in the comment box if we go too far. But now I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
So because of erectile dysfunction, I hadn't had intercourse in ages. And so the physical therapist said my muscles internally had atrophied. So the prescription, they said, was the only way to get exercise there. And they actually, Medicare can pay for this, or it did back then. I don't know if it still does. But they went across the street and bought a dildo to exercise and create blood flow in the lower part of my body, because that's what they thought I needed. So when it became apparent I was maybe going to have this experience, they said, it's going to be painful. You're going to need lubricants. And so, I got all prepared and did that. First of all, I didn't need the lubricants, not at all, ever, because vegans are eating produce like fruits and vegetables that already have a lot of water. And of course, I like to drink a lot of water. So it was wonderful. But more importantly, spiritually, emotionally, it was the best sex of my life. So I thought, I've got to write about this. And oh, by the way, this vegan partner, just lasted all night long. It's like repeatedly. And it's like, oh, this is just way different. This is like as good as it was when I was in my 20s, 28. So I wanted to write about it and started writing about it. And then at a Veg Fest, I ran into Dr. Joel Kahn, who is a vegan cardiologist out of Detroit. And I said, Joel, you want to write the medical research part of this book with me? And he said, I'd love to. So we went to it with to my publisher, and they said, oh, we don't think it's going to sell. And I'm going like, a book about sex? Not going to sell? Went to our first Veg Fest, and they saw how well it was selling, outperforming my other books. So they bought the rights to it. And that's where it is now. But here's the thing. Erectile dysfunction is the leading indicator of heart disease by as much as 30 years. Reason being, the blood vessels in the lower part of our body are much smaller and thinner. And when they start clogging up, that's when you get this indication that something's wrong, and you may not have that death-defying heart attack until 30 years later, because the arteries and vessels in the upper part of your body are much bigger. So that's the connection. What's good for the heart is good for other parts. It's all about blood flow. Check out the movie The Game Changers, narrated by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it talks about the Nashville Titans going vegan to enhance their performance. And they show also, I won't give the movie away, but they, again, documenting everything that I said in this book, that you can see the difference in blood tests. And they have these college students get fed a meat-based meal one night and a vegan meal the next night, and they connect their body parts up to machines that measure their erectile function during the night while they sleep, and they're way more active as a vegan with a vegan diet than having consumed the meat, which can be measured. You can see it in the blood. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think what's amazing is our infatuation with pills and supplements, and we will do those in a heartbeat and not even really know what's in them, why they do what they do, who's manufacturing them, where they come from. But you tell a story like that and people go, well, I want to hear that. It's a multi-million-dollar industry out there because there are a lot of people suffering from something they wish they weren't. And right. and I think all in all, Ellen, is there a downside? Have you discovered, maybe there's pesticides on vegetables, somebody might say. Is there a downside to giving this a try, plant-based vegan diet?
When people the big question we always still get is, where do you get your protein? And again, just, in case you missed that shot, we're good there with the protein. But, we go right to the source. We bypass the middleman. So it's the same thing like with algae for omega-3s and 6s. Vegans actually need less omega-6 because you can read all about that. But, we just, the downside is you may make a few relatives or friends cranky, but there's other social networks to reach out to, and certainly, great vegan communities. We're so lucky here in Florida to be able to exercise pretty much 24/7, 365 days a year. Hurricanes are greatly overrated. We get advance notice as opposed to tornadoes and earthquakes, both of which I experienced in St. Louis. We just have this opportunity to really be the best that we can, whatever your sport, just finding something to do that you love. The downside is, you may just have to go through a different mindset, but, you get all the nutrients you need except for B12. B12 used to be prolific in our soil, and we wash our vegetables now. As far as pesticides, Dr. Brooke Goldner has written extensively. She reversed her lupus eating conventional vegetables. So eating produce, even with pesticides on it, is still better than eating animals, because the animals are eating produce that not only has been or plants that have been treated with pesticides, but my oldest sister died of MRSA, the complications of that. And I think part of that is she ate so much cheese, and cows in particular are given a lot of antibiotics because they are forced to breastfeed. And you can just research that whole thing. But if they miss a feeding, or with all of that overexertion on their mammary glands, they get mastitis. And as any breastfeeding mother will tell you, that can be really painful. And if it gets infected, you need antibiotics. So they give cows routinely antibiotics to avoid that mess. And we consume that. And the toxins, the pesticides, the medicines are way more concentrated in animal fat, even the lean animal fat. So if you're eating meat that is a lean cut of meat and you think that's better, no, there's still fat in it, and you still have this exposure to toxins, which is far more concentrated than eating any plant. Certainly you can check out the environmental working groups, the Dirty Dozen for the worst treated produce. Usually it's things like, I do buy my berries because they have thin skins, and the pesticides can be systemic in those two, or in the berries, and same thing with peaches. Anything that has a soft skin, you might want to try and buy organic. But that's such a small price to pay for this and all this energy and fun.
Yeah, and I think really the overriding thing, Ellen, gosh, thank you for sticking with us. This has been quite a rigorous conversation. We've touched a lot of bases. If anything, I just hope that we can leave people the idea that their diabetes runs rampant, heart disease runs rampant, obesity is everywhere, so are knees, so are backs. We start thinking that these are inevitable parts of aging. And in some cases, maybe there is some of that, but we have more power. We have more control over our future, over our health, over our bodies than we believe. And maybe it's time that we can all improve ourselves and not pass the buck. And that cat is just unbelievable, that cat.
They're talking about you, Misty.
But yeah, Ellen, so yeah, I just want to thank you for being as personal as you have and as you are, and sharing this message, which is probably your instinct from coming from the J School like we did, and spending our careers in media, and you've had many experiences. But take it from an investigative reporter's mentality. Don't take anything on face value. Trust yourself. Take responsibility for your own health, for your own energy, for your own future, and think about the things that you do here and decide what you think is best for you. Ellen's amazing. There is so much more to her, the work that she is doing, the inspiration she is sharing, the books she is writing, and the difference she's making. And even if all she did was bring up the conversation in all of our minds, it's definitely worthwhile. And you will want to check her out and keep up with all that's going on with her. And you can do that at her website, vegcoach.com. Our thanks and our gratitude to the uplifting and empowering Ellen Jaffe Jones. It's a great conversation, and it's something that we all should think about from time to time. And one of these days, maybe we'll all take those steps to change something in our lives, and maybe be able to give ourselves better, more vital, vigorous futures than we even know about. So that's going to do it for GB Now for this stream. As always, we're glad to have you with us, and just want to remind you that the party never ends at growingbolder.com. I'm Bill Schaefer, reminding you that whatever you're up to this weekend, try to make a difference in somebody else's life, because that's growing bolder.